All right, this little update that I have been promising for a while about crime in Cairns is actually, I'm going to present this to you using the Sony camcorder on a tripod inside. Nice regulated environment. Got the ceiling fan on to provide a little bit of coolness. It's definitely a lot more pleasant here than it had been last week when the sun was out. It was really hot. But it's improved, it's on the improve, and good thing too, because I had a lot of shifting to do. As you can see behind me, I've got a couple of rather large consumer items that I've bought. The Samsung UHD 4K TV, that's 65 inch. Seems to work pretty well. Even the Bluetooth seems to work. I've been going through all the systems. It initially wasn't picking up the internet, but that's working as well now. It's a little harder to navigate than using a keyboard, but it's okay. So it does seem to work well. But what I mainly use it for is watching programs on a memory stick. So I get off the computer, download on a memory stick, and then just shove it in the back of the TV. I'm going to get myself one of these blue extension cords for the for USBs, because what I've found in the past is if you're using USB connectors a lot, they will wear out, and I've done that with my old desktop when I was living in Melbourne. So I think the idea is to buy something like this. It's got an extension for about I think about a metre, and it means you can connect your USB devices a lot easier. It also makes it simpler to put the USB in the back there, because I can snake it round the front and just to connect it here. So it's a lot simpler. And if this thing wears out, you just buy another one. They're about $5 or $6 online, so they're not exactly expensive. Although they're pretty well made. They're probably a better quality connection than what they put in the actual product. So that's what I'm doing to basically save my USBs, because I'm always swapping around stuff, especially when I'm making videos and using storage devices, and I just find that I'm really hammering the USBs slots a lot these days, so it's a good precaution. But now, so you've got the TV there on top of a very solid cabinet. The cabinet doors actually took a little bit of work for me. There's 6 screws I had to put in, and it's very heavy wood. And so I was only able to get 5 of the screws in that one. The other side, all 6 went in, although I couldn't get them right in. They were a Phillips screw. I did have a Phillips head screwdriver, but I don't think it was quite big enough for that job. So, but it looks quite nice. It's a nice piece of furniture, and even though it was a hassle to get it upstairs, well, not that much because of my neighbours, and that was a really good story how they came through and helped me, because I had no idea they'd be that obliging. So it makes you feel good about human nature when something like that happens as well. So it's nice to know you do have neighbours that are happy to help you out, because I actually expected my neighbour to pay me. I was going to make like a peppercorn amount, about $5 a week. I was asking him to pay to park under the using my carport, but he wasn't happy with that. So I said, look, it's no point me just denying him. So he was parking it outside. So I said, oh, look, this is ridiculous. I don't need the money that desperately, and so look, I just said to him, look, just park it anyway. I don't care. So he's not paying a cent. So I suppose he's quite happy to help me out occasionally. So I guess it all, what comes around comes around. So it's a good story. But he's been a good neighbour overall, so I've got no real complaints, so it worked out well. But I did promise you this story on crime, and what I'll do is I'll read this article, and what I'm going to do is, you won't have to look at my ugly mug. I took some shots of the heavens opening up a couple of days ago, and I'll use that as a backdrop and just use my ramblings as a voiceover. But I think it's an interesting article about youth crime here. I've been a victim of youth crime myself, having 2 bikes stolen. So it has affected me in a relatively minor way, but now I've got an expensive piece of equipment in here. I'm a bit more concerned. I was hoping to get a GPS tracker. I was looking them up just in case someone did flog it. I've got the serial numbers for both the HD TV and also the Panasonic sound system, which I bought. Is a mini hi-fi system just over there. It's not a particularly large system, but The speakers have got a bit of grunt in them, much better than the previous one. It's got 300 watt output, so it's much better than the Sony I had. So, and I was able to pair it with the TV. The Bluetooth for the actual TV did work with the sound system, although it did cut out occasionally. I tried it last night watching a movie, and it kept cutting out from time to time, so that wasn't very good. So I don't know if that's part of the Bluetooth thing. I might try it again, see how we go, but that was a glitch, and that's not really acceptable. So, you know, I may have to use a connector if I want to use that, which is a bit of a hassle. I'd rather use Bluetooth, but you know, Bluetooth is not infallible, let's be honest. So, anyway, enough of me. Oh, just one last thing I wanted to mention too. Ironically, guess where this TV is made? In Vietnam. All the Samsung, a lot of the Samsung electronics are now made in Vietnam. There's 60,000 people are employed in the Samsung factories up in the north, and they also have, I think they build some of the TVs, if not most of them, down in Ho Chi Minh City. So maybe I should have just gone to the factory and bought it factory direct and put it on the plane. So that would have been, because I'm doing it the convoluted way, going through Harvey Norman here and to get a TV set made where I was. So that's a crazy world we live in. Oh, crazy world, of course. Yeah, with all the toilet paper going off the shelves and everything, it's insane. But anyway, enough of that. I will now get to the main topic, and that is about youth crime in Cairns. Just after 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, a Tropic Now story featuring a letter from a Cairns police officer was going absolutely wild on the web. The officer's stark words delivered a rare, powerful insight into frontline policing and highlighted the failure of the system to address the youth crime crisis in the city. At about the same time our story was being read in thousands of homes across Cairns, and soon enough the nation, a masked offender walked into a corner store at Edge Hill brandishing a knife and demanding money. As if on cue, the armed robbery was on a live demonstration of a crime wave that the frontline officer had so bravely described in our article. As the masked offender fled with a stash of cash, our story was on its way to becoming the most shared and most read article in our site's history. It has since been shared nearly 1,700 times on Facebook and momentarily crashed our server due to the volume of traffic. The timing between the article and the armed robbery was uncanny, but regrettably not surprising, at least not to victims. Victims like the 28-year-old shop attendant on Wednesday night who was alone in the store when the robbery took place. A police report says the attendant was not physically injured in the armed robbery, a line that inadvertently hints at the potential harm and shock such an incident might have on a victim's mental and emotional state. The unprecedented reach of our article, including being tabled on the floor of State Parliament just hours after it was published, was its immediate impact. Hit a raw nerve in the community for one simple reason. Victims of crime have had enough. They are at their wits' end and they are angry. Many of them are so dangerously enraged they are openly threatening vigilante action. Victims of crime and the community more broadly are saying they do not have the same rights or receive the same consideration as offenders. They believe the balance between the impact on victims and the well-being of offenders is completely out of whack. It sounds like the script of Dirty Harry, doesn't it? Things haven't changed much in Australia, and that was in America, but things are pretty similar here by lots of things. The tens of thousands of people who reacted to our article are screaming in unison with a mix of intense frustration and demands for justice. Judging by the response to the article, perception has become the community's reality. The pendulum has swung too far in favour of youth offenders. The community feels what the officer wrote in our article, victims are left to pick up the pieces as there is zero punishment. Policing our way out of this is too late, and a reward for committing offences is disgusting and a fuck you to the victims. By now, Queensland Labor government is in no doubt aware of the community's current fears and concerns about the youth crime, but so far they appear tone deaf to it, despite the outrage reaching fever pitch. Social media has concentrated and amplified their outrage. A proliferation of crime groups on Facebook and are home to tens of thousands of members who contribute to daily torrent of crime news. Grainy CCTV footage from home cameras and calls to keep an eye out for stolen cars. Batting away the community's concerns and the impact of the officer's words in our article, member for Cairns, Michael Healy, told Tropic Now the system is in fact holding young offenders to account. Oh yeah. Just 2 days earlier, Mr Healy was lambasted on social media for an ill-advised post about the government's successful youth crime policies. Oh, ivory towers. In the past, Mr Healy said the government was reducing reoffending. He highlighted the construction of new youth detention facilities in Brisbane, some 1,700 kilometres away from his electorate and our city's immediate problems. God. His attempt to spruik the government's $500,000 to target youth justice was met with immediate scorn. Many of the people who connected on the post later complained in social media that groups that had been banned from Mr Healy's page in a bid for his office to minimise the extent of the negative reaction. Now that's good, just head in the sand stuff. Fabulous way of representing your constituents. In a very brief interview with Tropic Now on Thursday, which Mr Healy cut short before our reporter was able to ask any questions, he said, "I recognise policing is a very stressful job, but I won't comment on correspondence that doesn't have a name and that I can't verify." What I will say, and that I'm very, very happy to say, is the community expects young offenders to be held accountable, which we do. A young person can be remanded in custody to keep the community safe. That's what the Youth Justice Act provides for. Children can be questioned with an appropriate adult present. There is room at the Cleveland Youth Detention Centre, and we're building more to keep people safe. Tropic Now has applied to police media and the Justice Department for statistics on recent youth crime rates, but we've been told it could take up to 28 days to receive a response. However, we do know the figures on overall property crime, regardless of age of the perpetrator, paint a clear picture of a problem that is escalating. 73 vehicles have been stolen so far this month and 131 for the year, compared with a total of 66 in January and February 2019. That's more than double in a shorter period of time. Rates for robberies, assaults, other theft, unlawful entry and other property damage have all increased since about September last year. What happened at that time to cause such a spike in crime over the past 6 months? That's when the majority of the state government amendments to the Youth Justice Act came into effect, including a relaxation of breach of bail offences, which Mr Healy and his government steadfastly confident in their approach to tackling youth crime. The status quo and the legislation will remain. With a state election due in 9 months, the community's outrage will too. Yeah, I think Labor's in for a bit of a shock at this next election. I'm not saying that the Liberals are fielding a great alternative, but seriously, I think there's going to be quite a hefty swing against Palaszczuk. Hopefully it's enough to have a new administration in. I'm not overly wrapped in the Liberal Party, mind you, but I think it'd have to be better than the Palaszczuk government, who's just spending like a drunken sailor, really ridiculous, and just putting too much money into unproductive jobs for public servants. I have no problem with the ones that are on the front line, like nurses and what have you in the health system. I've had to deal with that, and they're very good. They're very good at their job. But I think there's probably a lot of feather bedding taking place too, and they're taking money away from private industry, which can do things much more productively. And I think this country's got to take a hard look at it, the way it's increasing the size of the public service in relation to the more productive private sector. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you, or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.